The first thing I registered wasn't the heat. It was the sound of the locks engaging. A distinct, mechanical thud echoed from the front door. Then the back. My smart home system, the one I had spent a fortune installing for my own safety, had just sealed me inside. Then came the smell. Acrid. Chemical smoke that burned my throat before I even opened my eyes. I scrambled off the couch, my head spinning from the sleeping pills I hadn't remembered taking. The living room was already a haze of gray. The fire alarm should have been screaming. It was silent. I ran to the main door. Locked. I tried the manual override. Jammed. Panic. Cold and sharp. Spiked in my chest. I pounded on the heavy wood, screaming for help. Though I knew the soundproofing in this penthouse was designed to keep the world out, that's when the intercom crackled to life. "Don't open it," a voice said. My father's voice. Calm. Measured. I froze, my hand hovering over the handle. "Dad? Dad?" "I'm in here. The door is stuck." "I know," he replied. "Listen to me, Thomas. If she dies, Jacob lives. The insurance will cover everything." The words didn't make sense. Jacob? My brother? Insurance? But she's your daughter. My mother's voice whispered, sounding more annoyed than horrified. "She's an asset, Lisa. And right now, she's worth more dead. Do it." The line went dead. A second later, a roar erupted from the kitchen as the accelerant caught. The world turned orange. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. The realization hit me harder than the smoke filling my lungs. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a tragedy. It was a liquidation. I retreated, coughing, crawling low towards the only place I knew wasn't connected to the central grid, the panic room concealed behind the master bedroom closet. As the fire consumed the life I had built, as the heat blistered the paint on the walls, I dragged myself into the darkness and sealed the door. Before I tell you what the security cameras revealed, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from tonight. I want to know who has my back in this fight. I didn't wake up in a sterile hospital room surrounded by nurses. I woke up on a leather couch in a basement server room. The hum of cooling fans vibrating against my ribs. My throat felt like I had swallowed broken glass. I tried to sit up, but a hand gently pushed me back down. "Easy," Ryan said. He didn't look up from his monitors. "You inhaled enough smoke to kill a horse. If I hadn't bypassed the biometric lock on that panic room, you wouldn't be breathing right now." Ryan, my head of security, the only person on my payroll who actually did his job, he spun his chair around and pointed to the wall of screens behind him. "You need to see this." On the center monitor, a local news feed was playing. The headline glared in bold red, "Tragedy in the Sky. Influencer Neve feared dead in penthouse inferno." And there they were. My parents. My mother, Lisa, was clinging to a reporter's microphone like a lifeline, her face a masterpiece of tragic grief. She wasn't wearing makeup, a calculated choice. She wanted to look raw, broken. "We just want our baby back," she sobbed into the camera. "She was our world. Our angel. We don't know how this happened." The wiring. It must have been the wiring. My father, Thomas, stood stoically beside her, wiping a single, photogenic tear from his cheek. "We ask for privacy," he said, his voice cracking perfectly. "And we ask that her fans honor her memory by supporting the foundation we will be establishing in her name." I stared at the screen, feeling a cold numbness spread through my chest where the panic used to be. They weren't grieving a daughter. They were mourning a lost asset. For 24 years, I thought I was part of a family. But watching them perform on live television, I realized I was just a portfolio. I was the retirement plan. I was the golden goose they had finally decided to slaughter because the eggs weren't coming fast enough. My name is Nevaeh. To the world, I'm a 24-year-old lifestyle icon. A pretty face who got lucky with an algorithm. They think I smile for a living? They don't know that I coded my first website at 12. They don't know I built a digital marketing empire from my bedroom while my parents were busy gambling away my college fund. They think I'm a product. They forgot I'm the architect. Where is he? I whispered. My voice raspy. Who? Ryan asked. Jakob. We scanned the news footage. My mother was wailing. My father was stoic. But my brother, the one whose life was apparently worth sacrificing mine for, was nowhere to be seen. He's not there, I said, the realization settling over me like armor. He's not grieving. He's hiding. That was the dynamic. Wasn't it? It always had been. Jacob was the golden child. The one who could crash cars and fail classes and still get a hug. I was the scapegoat. The one who had to be perfect just to be tolerated. And now, they had burned down my sanctuary to keep him warm. Ryan, I said, sitting up. The room spun, but I forced it to stop. Do not tell anyone I'm alive. Not the police. Not the press. No one. What are you going to do? He asked. I looked at the screen. At my father's fake tears. I'm going to let them think they won. I said. And then I'm going to verify every single lie they've ever told. I didn't waste time on recovery. I treated my trauma like a bug in the code, identified it, isolated it, and worked around it. Pull the logs, I ordered, pushing the heavy blanket off my legs. I want to see exactly how they did it. Ryan handed me a tablet. The local drives are slag, but your upload protocols held. The smart home pushed everything to the cloud 5 seconds before the sensors melted. We watched the footage in high-definition silence. It was a horror movie starring the people who raised me. Timestamp 11:42 p.m. My mother, Lisa, typing the override code into the master alarm panel. She didn't hesitate. She didn't look at my bedroom door. She just tapped the screen with the same casual indifference she used when ordering coffee. Timestamp 11:55 p.m. Jacob walked into the kitchen. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't scared. He was smiling. He poured the industrial cleaner over the stove like he was watering plants. They look comfortable, Ryan muttered, disgust soaking his voice. They look efficient. I corrected. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a project launch. I stared at my mother's face on the screen, frozen in pixelated concentration. For 24 years, I had asked myself what I needed to do to make them love me. I thought if I worked harder, posted more, earned more, I could buy my way into their hearts. I treated their affection like a luxury item I just couldn't afford yet. I realize now that I was never a daughter to them. I was an employee. And employees don't get loved, they get terminated when the overhead becomes too high. The cruelty wasn't a bug in our relationship, it was the operating system. Love was just the user interface they used to keep me compliant. Follow the money, I said, my voice ice. Why now? I was paying their bills. Why kill the cash cow? We pivoted to their financials. I knew their passwords because I was the one who set them up. I breached their private accounts with a few keystrokes. It took 10 minutes to find the motive. A legal draft from a high-end crisis management firm. State versus Jacob Miller. Felony vehicular manslaughter. Hit and run. The settlement offer to the victim's family was sitting in the draft folder. $2 million. Cash. Immediate transfer required to silence the witness and avoid a trial that would put Jacob away for 15 years. They didn't have $2 million. Ryan said. No. I replied, pulling up my own asset portfolio on the second screen. But I did. Then I saw it. The final nail. An email thread dated 3 weeks before the fire. Subject. Exclusive rights, the Nevaeh story. They hadn't just planned to kill me. They had pre-sold the image rights for a posthumous documentary to a streaming service. They had negotiated my eulogy while I was still cooking dinner in the next room. They had monetized my death before I had even taken my last breath. They sold my ghost. I said, my voice steady, devoid of any warmth. They turned my murder into a content strategy. I looked at Ryan. I want everything. Every email. Every bank transfer. Every deleted text. If they want a show, let's give them a season finale they'll never forget. They didn't wait for the ashes to cool. 3 days after the fire, my parents launched the brand, the Nevaeh Foundation. I sat in the dark of the safe house, watching the press conference on my tablet. They had set up a podium outside the burnt shell of my building. It was a masterclass in optics. My mother wore black, but not designer. She wanted to look humble. My father held her hand, playing the stoic protector. We are establishing this fund to honor our daughter's legacy, my father announced, his voice grave. All donations will go towards supporting young digital artists. Please. Every syllable was a lie. There was no support structure, no board of directors, no mission statement. There was just a PayPal link and a QR code flashed on the screen. They weren't building a legacy, they were crowdsourcing a legal defense fund for Jacob. They're moving fast, Ryan noted, tapping away at his keyboard. The donation page is already live. They've scheduled a global memorial livestream for Friday night. They're projecting 5 million viewers. Friday. That gave them 3 days to rehearse their lines. 3 days to secure the narrative. They think they've won, I said, studying my mother's face on the screen. She looked relieved. She thought the only witness to her crime was Ash. She thought she controlled the story because she held the microphone. Arrogance is a blinding light. It makes you miss the shadows. We need to move the timeline up, I said. If they have 3 days, they'll be too prepared. I need them desperate. I need them sloppy. I need them all in one room. Tonight. How? Ryan asked. We cut off the oxygen. I didn't send a text. I didn't make a call. I drafted a formal legal notice from a non-existent law firm, Sterling and Associates. The subject line was simple: immediate asset freeze, federal audit pending. The body of the email detailed a flagged irregularity in my estate, specifically the suspiciously timed transfer of image rights. It stated that all assets, including the new foundation accounts, were frozen pending a forensic audit scheduled for tomorrow morning. Send it, I said. Ryan hit enter. We switched the feed to the hidden cameras in their rental house, the temporary luxury villa they were renting, with credit cards they expected to pay off with my death benefit. The reaction was immediate. My father's phone pinged. He read the email. The color drained from his face. Lisa, he hissed. Look at this. My mother read it and dropped her wine glass. Frozen? They can't freeze it. We need the retainer for Jacob's lawyer by Thursday. It says audit tomorrow. My father paced the room, sweat beading on his forehead. If they audit the accounts before we get the donations in, they'll see we're bankrupt. They'll see the transfers. We need the money now. My mother snapped, her grief mask vanishing instantly. We can't wait for Friday. We need the donations to hit the account before the auditors lock us out. Tonight? My father decided, we do the memorial livestream tonight. We tell the fans. We tell them, we just can't wait to honor her. We need the cash flow immediately. I watched them scramble. They were panicked rats in a maze I had designed. They weren't thinking about mourning. They were thinking about liquidity. They're moving the stream to 8 p.m. tonight. Ryan confirmed. They're gathering in the living room. Jacob is setting up the lights. Perfect, I said, leaning back. They were building the stage for their own execution. And they had just sent out the invitations. The numbers climbed faster than the flames had. 8 o'clock sharp. The live stream feed flickered to life on our monitors. The viewer count skyrocketed instantly. 1 million. 2 million. 3 million. People love a tragedy. Especially when it's packaged in 4K resolution. My parents sat on a beige sofa, flanked by tasteful floral arrangements. The lighting was soft, specifically designed to make them look angelic. Jacob sat slightly behind them, head bowed, playing the role of the devastated brother to perfection. Thank you all for being here, my mother whispered, her voice trembling just enough to register as authentic on cheap speakers. We are broken. But we know Nevaeh would want us to carry on her work. I watched them from the darkness of the server room. It was grotesque. They were harvesting sympathy from the very people who had made me rich. Using my name to pay for my brother's crimes. They're good, Ryan admitted, his fingers flying across his dual keyboards. Donation link traffic is spiking. They've already raised $50,000 in the first 3 minutes. It's not enough, I said, my eyes fixed on my father's hand resting on my mother's knee. It wasn't a gesture of comfort, it was a signal. He was tapping a rhythm. Impatience. Wait, Ryan said. Freezing. He pulled up a separate window. I was digging through the unindexed subfolders of your father's cloud drive. I found one last document. He dragged it to the main screen. A PDF. Life insurance policy number 8842B. Insured, Nevaeh. Beneficiary, Thomas and Lisa Miller. Effective date, January 14th. Exactly 30 days before the fire. Look at the clause on page 4. Ryan pointed. Double indemnity in case of accidental death. The heir left the room. They hadn't just needed the $2 million for Jacob's settlement. They had structured my death to pay out double if it looked like an accident. If I had died of smoke inhalation, they would have walked away with $4 million. It wasn't desperation. It was an investment strategy. They had bet against my life. And they had tried to rig the odds. That's it, I said. The last shred of hesitation evaporated. They didn't just kill me to save Jacob. They killed me for a bonus check. On the screen, my father leaned into the camera. Please, he said, looking straight into the lens. Donate whatever you can. Help us keep her light shining. Ready the feed, I ordered. Ryan nodded. Hijack protocols are green. We have control of the main broadcast signal. We can override their feed in 3, 2. I adjusted the microphone in front of me. I didn't need a script. I had 24 years of receipts. Cut them, I said. The glitch started as a subtle tear in the digital fabric, on the millions of screens watching around the world. My mother's tear-stained face froze. The audio of her plea for donations stuttered, looped, and then dissolved into static. In the rental villa, they didn't notice at first. My father was still nodding solemnly at the camera lens, checking the donation ticker on the side monitor. My mother was reaching for a fresh tissue, preparing for the next beat of her performance. Then the main monitor behind them, the 60-inch screen they had set up to display a slideshow of my happiest moments, went black. The room fell silent. Jacob looked up from his phone. Annoyed. "Technical difficulties?" he muttered. The black screen flashed red. My logo appeared. Not the soft pastel version I used for my lifestyle brand. This was sharp, jagged, and blood red. Then, the audio cut in. It wasn't the soft piano music they had queued up. It was the crackle of a speaker, and a voice that every person in that room recognized instantly. "Don't open it." My father flinched as if he'd been struck. He stared at the screen, his mouth opening, but no sound coming out. "If she dies, Jacob lives. The insurance will cover everything." The color drained from my mother's face in a slow, terrifying wave. She looked at the camera, then at my father, her eyes wide with a primal panic. She realized, in that split second, that the camera was still rolling. The red tally light was still on. 5 million people weren't watching a memorial anymore. They were watching a confession. The video on the screen changed. It wasn't a montage of my childhood. It was high-definition security footage, stamped with a date and time from 3 nights ago. It showed my mother. She wasn't wearing black. She wasn't grieving. She was standing in my kitchen, wearing latex gloves, tapping a code into the alarm panel. The camera zoomed in digitally, highlighting her calm, methodical movements as she disabled the smoke detectors, one by one. The chat room on the side monitor, which had been flowing with hearts and prayer hands, stopped. For a heartbeat. The internet held its breath. Then it exploded. The stream of comments moved so fast it was a blur of rage. "What the fuck? Is that her? That's the mom. Did she just turn off the alarm? OMFG. Cut the feed," my father screamed, lunging toward the camera. "Jacob. Cut the damn feed." "I can't," Jacob yelled back, frantically tapping his tablet. "I'm locked out. The system isn't responding." "Sit down, Thomas," I said. My voice didn't come from the recording. It came from the main speakers in their living room, overriding their audio. They froze. Slowly. Terrified. They turned toward the large television screen behind them. The security footage faded. In its place, I appeared. I was sitting in the server room, illuminated by the cold blue light of the monitors. I wasn't wearing makeup. My hair was tied back. I looked tired, but I looked alive. "Hello, Mother," I said. My mother made a sound, a strangled "why," high-pitched whimper. She collapsed back onto the sofa, clutching her chest. "It's a ghost," she whispered. "It's a ghost." "I'm not a ghost," I said, looking directly into the camera lens, addressing the millions of people watching this dismantling. "I'm the witness." I typed a command. A new document appeared on the screen, overlaying my video feed. It was the settlement draft. "You told the world I died in a tragic accident," I said, my voice calm. "Surgical. You told them it was faulty wiring. But wiring doesn't have a motive." "You did." I highlighted the text on the document. $2 million. That's the price of the settlement for the man Jacob killed with his car. That's why you needed me dead. I wasn't a daughter to you. I was a piggy bank you decided to break open because you needed the cash. Jacob stood up, his face twisted. "Shut up," he screamed at the screen. "You bitch, you're ruining everything." "Am I?" I asked. "Or am I just balancing the ledger?" I brought up the next document. The life insurance policy. The double indemnity clause was circled in red. You bet against me. I told them. You took out a policy on my life 30 days ago. If I died in a fire and accident, you stood to make $4 million. 2 for the settlement. 2 for yourselves. A nice profit margin on a murder. The silence in the room was absolute. My father was shaking. His hands balled into fists at his sides. He wasn't looking at the camera anymore. He was looking at the ruin of his life. And this is where I expected them to break. I expected tears. I expected apologies. I expected them to fall to their knees and beg for forgiveness. To claim it was a mistake. A moment of madness. But they didn't. My father looked up at the screen. And his face wasn't filled with remorse. It was filled with hatred. Pure, unadulterated fury. You selfish brat. He hissed. The words shocked the audience. The comment section went nuclear. But I didn't blink. I knew this reaction. I understood it. We gave you everything, my mother screamed. Suddenly finding her voice. She stood up, pointing a trembling finger at the screen where my face loomed over her. We built you, we made you who you are. And this is how you repay us? By humiliating us? By surviving? There it was. The narcissistic injury. They weren't sorry they tried to kill me. They were furious that I had the audacity to live. In their twisted reality, I was the villain. I was the ungrateful child who had ruined their perfect plan by refusing to die quietly. They didn't see a murder, they saw a failed business transaction. And they blamed the asset for malfunctioning. You should have just died, Jacob yelled, throwing a vase at the screen. It shattered against the wall, missing the television. You should have just died and saved us. I did save you, I said coldly. I saved you from the burden of pretending you ever loved me. I looked at the camera, addressing my fans, the strangers who had loved me more than my own blood ever did. Look at them, I said. Look at the people who raised me. They aren't grieving. They're calculating. They aren't sad I'm gone. They're mad I'm back. My father moved toward the camera tripod, his intent clear. He was going to smash the equipment. Kill the feed. Try to stop the bleeding. Don't bother. Dad, I said. The police are already at the door. As if on quay. The heavy thud of a battering ram hit their front entrance. The sound broadcast clearly over the stream. Police, warrant. The look on my father's face shifted from rage to terror. The arrogance evaporated. He looked at my mother. She was staring at her hands, muttering to herself. Lost in the collapse of her world. You didn't just lose your daughter tonight. I told them, my finger hovering over the terminate button. You lost your reputation. You lost your freedom. And you lost the money. I leaned into the mic. The donation page has been redirected. I said, all funds raised tonight are going to the victim of Jacob's crash. You don't get a dime. My father's knees buckled. He sank to the floor. Defeated not by the police, but by the math. Goodbye, family, I said, and I cut the feed. The raid didn't take long. On the screen, I watched the police swarm the living room. Jacob tried to run a desperate, pathetic scramble toward the back patio, but an officer tackled him before he could reach the glass doors. The golden child, face pressed into the expensive rug, screaming about his rights. My parents didn't fight. They just sat there, slumped and small. As the cuffs clicked onto their wrists, the chat room on the side of my monitor was moving so fast it was a blur of neon text. Justice. Karma. Rot in hell. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel sadness. I felt the satisfying click of a ledger finally balancing out. The debt was paid. I shut down the servers, wiped the temporary drives, and walked out of the safe house into the cool night air. For the first time in 24 years, I didn't have to look over my shoulder. 6 months later, the empty lot where my penthouse used to stand is just a patch of gravel now. The developers are already planning a new high-rise. But I won't be living there. I live in a place nobody knows about. No smart locks connected to the cloud. Just heavy steel bolts and a view of the ocean. My parents are awaiting trial. The fraud charges alone will put them away for a decade. The attempted murder charges will bury them. Jacob is already in state prison. Denied bail because he's a flight risk. The settlement money I redirected to his victim's family ensured they got the justice they deserved. And it ensured Jacob got a cellmate instead of a penthouse. But my victory wasn't putting them in a cage. It was what I did with the keys. I relaunched the Nevea Foundation yesterday. This time, it's legal. I took the $4 million, the settlement money, the insurance payout, the liquidated assets from my parents' seized accounts, and I poured it into a grant program for victims of financial abuse and domestic sabotage. This is the justice of the sower. It's not enough to just burn the weeds. You have to plant something new in the soil. They tried to use my name to steal. I'm using their stolen money to heal. Every dollar they tried to take from me is now paying for a lawyer, a safe house, or a fresh start for someone else who was told they were worth more dead than alive. I pulled out my phone and opened my gallery. There was a folder labeled Family. Photos of graduations where they looked bored. Birthdays where they looked annoyed. The fake smiles. The staged hugs. I didn't archive it. I didn't back it up. I selected all. Delete. The screen flashed permanently delete 4,200 items. I tapped yes. The screen cleared. 0 items. I put the phone in my pocket and looked at the horizon. The sun was rising, painting the water in gold and fire. But this fire wasn't destructive. It was warm. I am Neve. I am 25 years old. And I am entirely, wonderfully alone. If you've ever had to burn a bridge to save yourself, type I survived in the comments. Share this story with someone who needs to know that blood doesn't make you, family loyalty does.